All right. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another one of our educational sessions. Tonight, we're going to be talking about estate planning and retirement. And before I hand it over to our guest, Judy Wagner, just some quick ground rules about how the webinar will work. First of all, if you have questions, use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. In most cases, it will be at the bottom of your screen. If you put your question in there, we'll find an appropriate time to interrupt Judy and ask the question. I'll repeat the question so that everybody knows what it is, and then hopefully Judy will be able to answer it live. If you want a deeper dive into some of the topics that we're talking about tonight, we have our text line available like we do for all of our webinars. So in this case, you'll want to write this down. If you text the word estate, E-S-T-A-T-E, estate, to 716-727-5047, we will make sure that we get your information to Judy, and then she can follow up directly with you if you have more detailed questions. The other part I want to mention here is that we're recording this webinar, so we will make it available to you afterwards. We'll send it out via email, and then of course always be available on our YouTube channel. So let me introduce Judy. Judy is a partner at Harris Beach, practicing in wills, trusts, and estates practice group. Her practice focuses on life care planning, including elder law, estate administration, estate planning, and trusts. She assists individuals and families with issues related to general estate and tax planning, corporate succession planning, as well as asset protection and crisis planning techniques. These issues include family wealth preservation, assistance with applying and qualifying for Medicaid, long-term care planning, care management, guardianships, supplemental needs trusts, and special needs planning. On top of that, Judy is a phenomenal person. That's my edit to the bio. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Judy, and we'll start the presentation.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. I guess I was supposed to advance the slides for the disclosure, but Mike gave you the Reader's Digest of that. But I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in this evening. I hope everyone is home comfy on their couch with a hot cup of tea or your a nice glass of wine. But what we're going to talk about tonight is financial wellness and kind of the legal aspects of financial wellness. As Mike mentioned, I'm an attorney at Harris Beach in Buffalo, and my office is in the Larkin building. And we have a great view on the 10th floor of out looking over the lake. But estates and trusts and estate planning, long-term care planning, asset protection, that's my main area of focus. It's all I do. So it's kind of nice that I don't have to worry about any other areas of law because I have people that do that. And so I'm able to just focus on this particular area of law. And I've been doing this for a little over 20 years. And I always said when I hit the 20-year mark that I would stop counting. But I've been doing this for a long time, and I love my work. And I love talking about it. So I'm glad that that Mike and Level Financial have given me this opportunity tonight to talk to you all about it. So let's dive right in.
Hey, Judy, before you get started, we actually have a question already.
Oh, okay.
So, so this question came in while we were opening up and introducing. It says, under what circumstances, if any, would it be appropriate to put an IRA into a living revocable trust?
Well, I'll answer that quick. We are going to talk about trusts a little bit later in the program, but you would never do that because if you change the ownership of an IRA account, you're going to trigger tax liability for that particular account. So we would never do that. We would manage. We would manage where that IRA is going to go via beneficiary designations and that sort of thing. So, but that's not the type of an account that would go into a trust. But stay tuned. We're going to talk a little bit about trusts later on in the program. All right. So, what is financial management other than this cute little piggy here with his piggy bank with his weights? It's a state of well-being. Get rid of my face here. So I have, there we go. State of money-related well-being that you achieve when you are comfortable knowing what you have, where you're headed, and you're taking steps to get there. Being prepared is a feeling of being in control of your finances. Being organized, having access to the tools necessary to make good decisions, and having a plan for the future. But being prepared means having your, knowing where you're headed. So knowing what your goals are in the future. Maybe you're headed towards retirement and that sort of thing. But having the detail available so that you know where everything is. And I always kind of think about this when a lot of people will come to me to update their estate planning documents when they're getting ready to go on vacation. And I always kind of think about, like, if someone had to pick up the pieces of my financial life, if I weren't here, would they be able to do that? So for me, financial preparedness is not only being prepared myself for what may come up in the future, but also being prepared and organized so that if someone had to pick up the pieces, that they would be able to do that. So having that kind of security directly affects your areas of well-being. So your mental health, and of course your physical health. If you're nervous about all of this, then that affects your physical health. So we're all different. What we're talking about tonight, and every time that we talk about estate planning, we're talking about our story. And each one of us has a different story. Our families are all different. Our children are different. Maybe you don't have any children. So whatever your family situation is, if you have disabled beneficiaries, what your economic situation is like, what your goals are for the future, what things make you happy. Do you plan to travel? Do you, you aspire to have that boat at the marina? What challenges do you have? If there are disabilities, if there are health issues, the needs of yourself and maybe your family members, always are, front and center, dealing with aging parents and that sort of thing. If you have medical issues that you might need to address, all these things are different. But it all makes up what our each individual story is about. We talked a little bit already about being prepared for emergencies and unexpected expenses. If you have a long-term care event, those types of things, I'm very frequently helping people talk about those types of things. People come to me to help them plan for the worst case scenario, and we always hope that never happens, but that's what we plan for. If there are things that we can do ahead of time to help protect your assets or to protect your family for those types of things, then that's what we're here for. An emergency might be a car accident. It might be a roof repair or a need for a new roof. Being prepared, having your financial health in order helps you better be organized for these things. So being organized, I think, is a huge help. Being organized is the first thing that that first phone call that I take with a new client is talking about being organized. What I generally do, first of all, is send out a nice long questionnaire that allows you to give me all of your financial information or your financial background, all of your family information, names and addresses and everything like that, and giving me all the details of your story, so that I can take a look at things that I think are important for us to talk about. So the very first thing we do is get organized. Doing an annual insurance review helps with organization. What I should add on here is your annual review with your financial advisor. This is something that I know that Level does with their clients to make sure that they have a comprehensive picture of everything that your moving parts with your finances, so that they can address things over time that might need to change as maybe you're getting older, you're headed towards retirement, that sort of thing. But knowing what kind of benefits that you have if you are working, knowing what disability benefits that you have, short-term or long-term, making sure that all those beneficiary designations are up to date and that sort of thing. Education is huge. So this is part of your story and the things that I help you with. But knowing what you need to educate yourself about, this might be a tax situation. It might be your investment strategies. It might be understanding the system for long-term care and Medicaid and Medicare and those types of things. Maybe you have a health issue or a parent with a health issue that maybe you need to educate yourself with, support services like the Alzheimer's Association provides some wonderful support services, that sort of thing. And knowing when to ask for help. It is important that there's all kinds of help out there, and it's super important when to know that that you need to reach out for some help. Financial wellness is not just about you, of course. It is about you. It's about your children, depending on what stage in life you are. Although if you have kids, your children are always a part of your story. My kids are a little bit older, 32 and 35. They're out on their own and doing great, but your kids are always a part of your story. And also, I don't know about you, but I am dealing with an aging parent. My mom is 83, and the situation changes daily with that type of situation. So these are all the different types of scenarios that encompass your financial wellness, for not only knowing what to plan for, but who to plan for. So let's talk about you first of all. From a legal perspective, part of your financial wellness is making sure that you have your house in order with regard to your basic estate planning. Your will, your power of attorney, your living will, healthcare proxy, all these things are important. Your three basic documents that everyone should have. Your last will and testament is directing where your assets go at your passing. Your power of attorney is a document during your lifetime that appoints someone to act as your legal representative. And this is the power of attorney is effective as soon as you sign it. So, my husband right now is my power of attorney. He could act for me. There is no requirement of incapacity in order for someone to act as a power of attorney. But I think of all of the documents, my feeling is that this one is the most important, because if you have not designated someone to act for you for legal and financial matters, no one can. And that includes a spouse. A lot of people think that a spouse has the legal right to act for their spouse, but that is not the case. The alternative to a power of attorney is a guardianship proceeding, and it's a very complex proceeding in Supreme Court. I actually just had to do one for someone recently, and because of all of the court requirements that we have, the multiple attorneys that need to be involved, because we have all these layers of protections. So that the person that is being declared incapacitated, all of their rights are at the forefront of the situation, but it is very complex. And it was an uncontested proceeding, and the bill was about $12,000. So if you do not have a power of attorney, I strongly recommend that you get one. And the living will healthcare proxy, of course, is the document where you appoint someone to make healthcare decisions for you. But this particular document only kicks in when you can't make decisions for yourself. So you are totally in control of your own healthcare decisions, but your person that you're appointing as your healthcare agent is your backup plan, so that you have someone there in place if you can't make decisions. But wait, you definitely don't stop there. We've already talked tonight about the detail that is so important. And depending on what particular stage in life you are in, this may dictate different types of documents that you might need to consider to make sure that that you and your loved ones are taken care of. One of the big things is long-term care planning. This particular item, you might want to consider a trust. But I always want to make sure that there are very particular items of authority that are in a power of attorney that have to do with long-term care planning. The ability to gift and things like that are very important. The ability to name a beneficiary on a document for the person that you're acting on behalf of. And those are things that have to be very detailed in a power of attorney. So, I always recommend, that's something that I look at. If people come into the office for planning and they already have power of attorneys, I always make a point to look at their documents to make sure that all of the points are covered, so that they are not missing something later on down the road. You might need a supplemental needs trust. That's the SNT that's noted there on the slide. That is a trust for a beneficiary that has some sort of a disability. So if you have a beneficiary with a disability and they are on any type of government benefits, then a supplemental needs trust is a very important part of your planning. And of course, children. And depending on what stage of life you are in, if you have minor children, or if you have children that are still young enough that you're concerned about an outright distribution of assets to that particular child, then having trusts included in your will or in your trust, in your whichever estate planning documents you happen to have, is very important. Those documents will define when the children outright or inherit outright. So a lot of times people will choose the age of 25 or 30, depending on what your personal preference is. And then any inheritance that child gets will stay in that trust until the date when you say it's okay for them to inherit an outright distribution. Also in the documents is naming a guardianship for minor children, so that a guardian is designated in the in the event, heaven forbid, that something happens to both of the parents, that there is a guardian named in the document. In addition to the detailed discussion, your financial review goes hand in hand with your documents. This is something that I work very closely with Level Financial. We have a number of mutual clients, but I always encourage my clients to make sure that they are involving their financial advisor with estate planning when we're putting these documents together. And that is because everything has to be consistent between beneficiary designations, how accounts are titled, whether they are single owner, whether they are joint investment accounts or joint bank accounts. And this is something where educating yourself is very important, because anything that has a beneficiary designation on it, or has or is in a trust, any assets that are held in those particular ways, they are what we call non-probate. So you might have a will that says, I leave everything in equal shares to my 3 children, but you might have a bank account that is joint, and if you pass away, that bank account is going to go to that one joint owner. Just the fact that your will says, I leave everything in equal shares to my 3 children, makes no difference with that joint bank account, because that contract for that bank account prevails or trumps the will. So it's important. This is another reason why I ask for all the financial detail. Who are your beneficiary designations? How are these accounts titled? So that we can go through all these particular details and make sure that everything is consistent and everything flows exactly the way that that you would like.
Judy, I
When
got
do
a
you,
quick question. Quick
okay,
question came in.
go right ahead.
This question is, can you elaborate on what details need to be addressed re a long-term care policy?
I would say details for a long-term care policy. This is something that I always ask people to see if they have long-term care insurance. The policies have been changing over the years because the premiums have gotten so high. So what I look at is what the particular coverage is. How long does the policy pay? Is it a 3-year policy? Is a longer policy than that? Some of them are a big bucket of money, and it's paid out as over a period of time, until you max out your bucket that you have created. Is there an inflation rider on the policy? Is it a partnership policy, which means that if the policy is fully paid out, that the person can transition right into Medicaid without having to divest themselves of all of their assets. So there's a lot of moving parts to long-term care insurance, and that really is an important component of our planning, especially with long-term care planning, because it changes. If you have a Cadillac policy and your policy is awesome, we might plan differently than we would if if maybe your policy only covers $250 a day, for example, of a nursing home, when nursing homes are now running between $450 and $500 a day. The planning is different, but that's some of the detail that I look at when I have someone with long-term care insurance. Okay, I'm going to keep moving along here. I always encourage people to revisit their estate planning at least every 5 years, or if something changes. If there is a change in marital status, you need to update your estate planning. I'll tell you, I just have been dealing this week with a client that came in and had been divorced. She got the house in the divorce, but she never did the deed transferring the house over to her, and he has since passed away. So now we have a situation where the change in marital status severed the joint tenancy on the house. Now the house is held in tenants in common, and we're looking at having to do an estate proceeding for the husband just to carry out the terms of the divorce agreement. So those types of things are so important not to, you really have to take care of those details when something like that happens. So important. If you have a new child, if you get an inheritance or acquisition of significant assets, maybe you won the lottery, maybe you have a business and your business was bought out and things are changing financially in that regard. If you're approaching retirement, that is a crucial time to revisit your estate planning. And of course, if there's been a death in the family, then that's an important time to revisit your estate planning as well. So what chapter you're in helps guide us in how you what you do to maintain your financial wellness and keep your estate planning up to date. If you are younger and you have minor children, that's different. When I'm working, I'm hoping to retire at some point in the future, but I don't see it coming anytime soon. But maybe you are already retired. Looking at the value of your assets, the value of your estate, determining whether or not you have an estate tax situation is something that we look closely at. Whether or not you need a trust, we talked about disabled beneficiaries already, or if you have beneficiaries with financial challenges, that is a good that is a good reason to either have a trust or to incorporate particular detail into your financial planning and into your estate planning. If you are nearing retirement, that preparation and planning, long-term care planning, usually people ask me, when should I start doing some long-term care planning? And usually I say it's at your retirement years that you start thinking about that, so that we can, take a look at the where you stand financially. And we know that there is a certain time period involved in long-term care planning. So, your family history, your medical history, all of these things play a part in this planning. So this is just a quick slide that points out the new 2024 exemption amounts that just went into effect this year. If you're lucky enough to have a $13.6 million estate, you are free and clear of federal estate tax. The federal estate tax statute is set to expire at the end of 2025. So all the estate tax legislation is a moving target. It is always constantly changing, and it is set to change again at the end of 2025. And if we don't have new estate tax legislation at that point, it will revert back to when the estate tax was about 6 million. So it will essentially be cut in half if our government leaders can't decide on new estate tax legislation, which we all know they can't really decide on anything. So we just don't know. But these are the numbers as they currently stand. The New York State exemption is 6.9 million right now. The gift tax exclusion, where the IRS says that you can gift $18,000 per person per year without having to tell the IRS about it. That is the gift tax exclusion amount. And I like to point out that the taxable estate includes all assets, including the death benefit of life insurance. I actually was just talking to a client last evening, and we were talking about the value of their estate, which was a couple $1 million. But then the husband mentioned that he has a $6 million term policy. So even if you think that you are nowhere near that $6.9 million figure, it's worth the discussion about where you're headed with, where your finances are headed, what type of life insurance that you have, are you expecting any inheritances, and then of course working with your financial advisor to do projections on where they see your estate going over the years. And you never know, but you might get there. So it's an important discussion to have.
Another quick question,
Sure.
Judy, another quick one just came in. If the federal exemption does revert back in 2026, does the New York State exemption change at all, or is that a completely separate issue?
It's a completely separate issue. The New York State exemption will stay the same. And it's interesting, there was just a proposal about a week or so ago to eliminate the federal estate tax. So I don't see that ever happening, but I do think that it will stay high. That's just my guess, that I think that it will stay high, because I think most of our government leaders are pretty wealthy people, and they don't want to have to be paying a state tax. So I don't think it will go away as is proposed, but it's just political posturing at this point to start gearing up for this discussion. I'd like to talk just a little bit quickly about, check my time, 6:30. Just a little bit about trusts. I have previously done a full hour program on trusts with Level Financial, and Mike probably can point you in the direction of where you can find that program. I know it's probably on their YouTube channel. if you have specific questions about trust, we have a whole separate program on that. But I'm just going to give you a Reader's Digest in this program just to give you a little taste. But a trust is a separate entity that's created by a document. A trust is created during your lifetime. It can be either created during your lifetime or in a document at your death. But a living trust is specifically one that you create during your lifetime. It can be revocable or irrevocable, and there are lots of different facets to it. But the revocable trust is designed generally to avoid probate and simplify the transition of assets to the beneficiaries. The irrevocable trust is the trust that we use for creditor protection and long-term care planning and asset protection, that sort of thing. So those two things are very different and are used for different purposes. The testamentary trust is a trust that you create in your will. So, for example, for folks with minor children, you might want to create a minor's trust at your death, so that assets flow into that minor's trust for that child. But it's not something that you create during your lifetime, because hopefully you never need it. Hopefully you live a very long life, the kids grow up and they don't need that trust, but that option is there. The trust document itself specifies the rules of operation. So it sets out the rules for how you want the assets in the trust to be handled. Those assets might stay in the trust. They might be distributed for particular purposes, like education or just general health and welfare. But whatever your particular goals are, that fit in with your particular situation, those goals are set out in a trust. And a lot of times, if people have unique circumstances that they want to be addressed, then the trust is a great way to handle those things, because you can design a trust pretty much any way you want to. And the trust is beneficial for estates of any size, not just big ones. And a lot of people think that, but I'll tell you, my favorite clients are hardworking Western New York families that may not have a ginormous estate, but have worked hard for what they have. A lot of people, their house is their biggest asset. They may have their investments, but they feel very strongly that those assets, they want to leave a legacy to their children or to their families. And so there's a lot that we do with trusts, not for super wealthy people. Just my dad worked at General Motors, so those are mostly my favorite clients. The trust controls the assets by establishing conditions. I guess we discussed that already. How things are distributed, if they're distributed out to beneficiaries at a certain age or at a certain point in their lives. This is something that we detail in a trust agreement. So who should have a trust? If you have beneficiaries with special needs, generally, if you have a beneficiary with a disability, if they are on any type of government benefits, like SSI or like Medicaid, then an inheritance to that particular beneficiary is going to bump them off of their government benefits. So for a lot of folks like that, their government benefits are very important to them because they provide vital services for that person. And so we want to make sure that we don't do anything that is going to jeopardize their services that they get. There are very helpful trusts that we can create. That supplemental needs trust, I mentioned it earlier, that can hold assets for that disabled beneficiary, providing extras for their needs, but not interfering with their government benefits. Minors trusts we already talked about. If you want to avoid probate, or if you anticipate a potentially complex probate process, then some form of a trust will probably be very helpful for you. Right now, surrogates court is very busy, and they're having staffing problems just like everyone else. By the time when we submit an estate to surrogates court, they will not even let us ask for a status report for 3 months. So not only does the estate have to stay open for at least 7 months from the date that the executor is appointed, you might not get your executor appointed for 3 or 4 months because the court is so backed up. So and also, I'd like to point out to people that you may not realize that that even if you have a will that says I give my estate to X, Y, and Z, everyone that would have inherited your estate if you had no will has to be a part of the probate process. So I was actually just talking to a client today that has a friend. He's 96 years old. He's not married. He's single. He does not have any children. He does not have any siblings. So when you start thinking about a 96-year-old and trying to draw that person's family tree to bring all those people into this proceeding, it could be very expensive and very complex and very time consuming. So this is something, if this is a situation that you might be in, it's something that we should talk about. Privacy, the client that I spoke to yesterday, they are 2 physicians, and they're very concerned about keeping their estate planning documents private, and a trust accomplishes this goal. If you have a taxable estate, of course, if your estate is more than 6.9 million, that New York State exemption, we should definitely be including, you should definitely have a trust so that you can make sure that you take advantage, if you're a married couple, to take advantage of both of the spouses' $6.9 million New York State exemption, because if you do not use it, you lose it. And that could be a big ticket item if you're throwing away a almost $7 million exemption. Stipulations on inheritances, we talked about life events, if you have any unique circumstances, if you have a child with financial challenges and you need to keep their share in trust. If you're concerned about the cost of long-term care, we do a lot of irrevocable trusts to protect assets if you are concerned about long-term care. So financial wellness and retirement planning, if you're approaching retirement, I think everyone's biggest concern is running out of money. And it's because people are living longer. Risks of spending too quickly, inflation we're painfully aware of right now, market fluctuations, and the high cost of healthcare. So being prepared is a huge part of this kind of planning. Define and prioritize your goals. Determine what is important to you. What are the essential things? What are your bills? What is important to you? If you want to travel in your retirement, do you want to have that boat in the marina like I do? Do you want to have a second home? What things are important to you? And so that's a goal that you want to aspire to. Aspirational goals like charity and leaving a legacy to your children are also important. So what money you need to achieve those goals is a part of your financial wellness and your retirement planning. So the risks to your perfect retirement plan is, I guess we're happy to hear that that it's longevity. For people are living longer, and so you have to plan for that long life, plan for that very long retirement plan, and inflation. How are you going to pay for those extra years? Because the inflation impact, as we're painfully aware of right now, once while you're working, you can get those cost of living increases, and it helps with inflation. But after retirement, that benefit is lost. So we have to be careful about our planning strategies. So how can you offset longevity? Maximize those retirement contributions. And this is something that Level is very important, or very, very good at helping with this kind of planning. Not only are they doing your projections to make sure that you have as much money as you need to reach all of your goals, in your retirement, but counseling folks on maximizing those retirement contributions to make that retirement nest egg last just as long as possible. So I plugged in some of the numbers here from 2024. These are the maximum amounts that you can put into IRAs and 401ks as of 2024, and these are great ways to save. So if you're over 50, those numbers are a little bit higher. You have catch-up contributions, so you can put a little bit higher in. Talk to your financial advisor about maximizing Social Security benefits and having a strategy there. My husband is a little bit older than I am, so our strategy is to hold off on him taking his Social Security benefits so that his number gets higher. And if something happens to him, then I inherit his Social Security number. So these are all strategies that you should be thinking about while you're evaluating your retirement plan. Exploring a second career, if that works for you. My husband actually retired and actually got a nice little part-time gig that is totally different than what he did for his career. And he's enjoying himself with the time that he has in being retired. So being mindful that market returns early in retirement matter, so that you want to make sure that that nest egg is secure so that it can continue to grow to work for you. Be cautious about your investments and talk to your advisor about your plan. Okay, I'm going to have to go faster because it's 6:45, so I apologize for speeding up a little bit. Minor children, I'm doing more and more power of attorneys and healthcare proxies for minor children. We already talked about guardians and so forth. Adult children is the time when you revisit your estate planning. So like I said, my kids are a little bit older, and I recently redid my estate planning to remove the trust for them and name my kids as my alternate powers of attorney and healthcare proxies because they're old enough to handle those types of things. Your aging family members, preparing for caregiving is huge. Planning early to allow for informed planning. If you have a family member or loved one that is starting to have memory issues, for example, planning early so that they can participate in these planning sessions so that they have their wishes carried out is super important. Being involved in finances, if maybe your aging family member, it might be a little bit harder for them now to handle their checkbook, and so stepping in might be more of a relief than you think. You might think that you're imposing, but they might see it as a huge relief. And also, making sure that their documents are up to date, and that gives the family, that maybe the children, the opportunity to have a discussion about the parents' finances, so that they know where everything is, and they're not trying to scramble to pick up the pieces after mom or dad all of a sudden can't handle these types of things, or if there's a health event. Learning about levels of care, very important. Assembling your care team, your tax professional, your financial advisor, your attorney, and then also your care team, your neighbors and your faith family, and that sort of thing, so that you have this team assembled. Knowing the rules to avoid difficult outcomes. Medicaid is a whole program in itself, but just quickly, I want to make sure that I reiterate that Medicare does not cover long-term care. It does cover some short-term rehabilitation, but Medicare does not cover any type of nursing home or long-term care. The new numbers for 2024 are here for the Medicaid resource and income numbers. 30,182 for a single person, 74,820 up to 154,000 for a well spouse that's living in the community, and the income numbers, a single individual, $50 a month when they are if someone's in a nursing home, and about $3,800 for that community spouse. IRAs are exempt. I'd like people to know that. There's that 5-year look back period for nursing home care, and all the rules about penalty periods and spend down. These are all things that it's very important that you learn about, either as you age or as your family member ages. Like I said before, retirement is a perfect time to assess your long-term care planning needs. Consider an asset protection trust. We have some great options that give the grantor gives the grantor key items of control over that trust. They're very favorable tax wise, and avoid that probate proceeding when hopefully nobody ever needs Medicaid and a nursing home. I always say this in my programs: caution your aging family members to not believe what they hear at the coffee shop or the hairdresser. The first thing everyone hears as someone starts to get older, or maybe they start to have health issues, is start giving your money away. And that is the worst advice ever. I do not do anything that I can't undo. So that's why trusts are so great, because we can transfer some assets to get that 5-year clock started. But if something goes wrong within the 5 years, we have the ability to undo these things. Don't ever do anything that you cannot undo, and make sure that you're getting good professional advice from an elder care attorney, someone that specializes in this sort of thing, because the devil is in the details. And be well. This is going to be me in a few weeks, since I just booked my flights to Fort Lauderdale to see my sister in a few weeks. So plan early and be well.
All right. Well, great. We don't have any other questions. So a couple of closing remarks here. First of all, just to reiterate, I put in the chat for anybody who needs it the text line number if you want to get more information from Judy. I also put a link in there to Judy's fantastic presentation on trust that she did with us previously. So you can watch that at your leisure, and a link also to our YouTube channel. And then the other thing I would mention too is that if you're a client of the firm and you want your advisor to help you coordinate meetings, whether it be with an estate planning attorney or an elder care attorney, that's what we're here for. So don't feel like you have to go it alone. You can call the office here. We will quarterback that situation for you. We will reach out to our trusted professionals, and we do have a list of people that we work with. There's no financial arrangement in between the companies. We just have a list of people that we trust, that we feel give the same level of service to our clients that our clients expect from us. And certainly Judy does that as well. So with that, we'll wrap up tonight, another one of our webinars. I'm Mike Hebron, the Chief Operating Officer here with Level Financial. And Judy, thank you so much for presenting.
Happy to be here.
Everybody have a great evening.
Have a nice evening, guys.
Bye-bye.